Hello, everybody. It's Ed Rosenberg again, and I'm talking tonight to Jay from Ecom Engine. Jay, how are you doing today?
Hey Ed, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
Okay, my pleasure. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ecom Engine is actually the parent company of a few companies, most notably FeedbackFive and Restock Pro. That's what we're going to talk about today. Jay, you started FeedbackFive. Tell us a little bit about the history because FeedbackFive in the Amazon sellers world is a little bit of an iconic, legendary piece of software. So tell me a little bit how it started and what it does for an Amazon seller and how it could differentiate. And also, I want to talk a little bit about that new feature where you can identify an order with a review. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, yeah. Let me just, we officially Feedback Five is as the name Feedback Five started in 2009, but it really existed for several years before that because before we became a hosted software company, we did a lot of custom work for mostly larger sellers. And what we found gradually, we moved on to more of a platform type software company where instead of doing custom work, we actually, built a platform. So Feedback Five was originally something we built for a few of our clients, and we started adding more and more clients on it. They were reporting really good results from it, and we said, hey, we need to rethink our business model. We need to think maybe we need to take this and come up with and make it so that anybody can sign up and try it for free, and that's how Feedback Five was born. Originally, actually, we were going to call it Feedback Center Pro, and then a friend of ours was talking with us about it and said, "Why don't you look at Feedback Five?" And so we changed the name of it, and that's the way it all started in about 2009. And so it's certainly been important for us because it really showed us that we can be successful producing what you call SaaS software these days.
Right. Now, yeah, I remember the early days of Feedback 5, and I know the interface changed.
Oh yeah.
I actually remember, we'll talk about that later. But I remember the old interface from Feedback 5. And you said you're the first one to ever come up with this concept of soliciting feedback from Amazon for Amazon sellers. Is that correct?
Well, I would just detail that Amazon really was the first one to come up with it because they were telling people it's a good idea to ask for feedback, and we were the first ones to fully automate the process with an online hosted software. But really, what gave us assurance that this was a good thing to do was Amazon. From very early on days of Seller Central, they were saying feedback was important and it was okay to ask for feedback. There were lots of rules about customer communications going way back, but they said that was one place where they thought it was okay to reach out to your customer because we want to build that relationship between the customer and the seller, and they thought that was going to encourage a good customer experience.
Right. Now, like when this started, this whole feedback, if you don't have a software asking for feedback, I think the percentages of buyers who give you feedback is something like 2%. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it has gone down over the last 5 or 10 years as the platform has gotten more successful. The percentages have gone down, and you can get 2%. You can even get less. But we used to have customers regularly getting 15% and even above that. We're using Feedback Five well above, but that's very very rare these days.
Right. That's what I was saying because I always had in my head that it's around 15%, and then I looked it up, and you're lucky to get like 7, 8% even with the software.
That is correct. If you dial back 4 or 5 years, things were a little slower and the marketplace wasn't as mature. We had lots and lots of customers that were getting 15% and even higher. Nowadays, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I think you're exactly right. I think 7 or 8% is a very respectable number these
Right.
days.
Now, I was speaking to somebody about this whole feedback software, and he was saying that no, he doesn't want to do anything like it because it just opens up a can of worms.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, we've had this question from day one. Why do I want to open up a can of worms? And the truth is that for the vast majority of sellers, you're not opening up a can of worms. On occasion, we would have sellers. This happens rarely now. We'd have sellers call us that were in big trouble. They were about ready to get kicked off or booted off by Amazon. Their feedback was sinking. They had a shipping problem or something, and they would say, "What can you do to help us?" And they said, "Well, we can help you get more feedback, and we can do it very rapidly for you, but we don't recommend you do that until you have fixed your underlying customer service issues. If you're not going to reply to an email, then asking for feedback is not going to solve that problem. But provided that you've got your customer service priorities in shape, and you're using FBA, you've got a system in place, I think that it's a no-brainer, and that really, frankly, we have much more often the case where you can preempt the negative feedback if you take the right approach to the way you solicit. So you're capturing it before it takes place.
Now, you want to talk a little bit about that new feature? I know a lot of people are excited about it, where you can find a product review and you can try to match it up to one of your orders. Now, first of all, does Amazon even allow that?
Well, it's a good question. So obviously we do capture product reviews. Those are all public information, and we expose them, to you in a nice reporting format. But I think what you're alluding to is the ability to identify the actual person who left the review, and this is something that we've been doing for a little while. We're still calling it in beta because we're very actively researching it and improving our algorithms for the match. But I will say that absolutely you can identify many times, not many times, but sometimes, it'll be obvious who the buyer is, but many times it's not obvious. But there are some rules that you have to be aware of. The rules are a little bit more restrictive for product reviews than they are just for regular feedback. So Amazon does not allow you to go out and say, I want you to remove that product review. You can't ask for removal like you can with feedback, but you can certainly reach out if you know that somebody had a disappointing product experience. You can, and frankly, I think probably Amazon encourages it. You can reach out to them. You can clarify something that was unclear, and you can also, if there was a problem with the item, Amazon certainly doesn't oppose you trying to make the customer happy. So we see many instances where customers are willing to upgrade their product reviews based on that customer service contact that takes place.
Right. What I tell people is first take care of the issue. Don't tie it to the review. First take care of the issue. Then once the issue is solved, then the customer a lot of times on their own will just update the review.
Yeah, you do a quid pro quo with anybody, Amazon will obviously have a big problem with that.
Yeah,
so
you take care of the issue, and then hopefully the customer on their own will take care of it. Okay, right. So that's FeedbackFive. How did you get the name? It's like High Five, or where did the name come from?
FeedbackFive. Well, we wanted to say 5-star feedback, so and it alliterates FeedbackFive. So. That's where it came from. So we had a big internal debate, but we ended up sticking with FeedbackFive, and we're definitely not changing it now.
Right, and you're located in Virginia. Is that correct?
We are. We're in Richmond, Virginia, Central Virginia. We're sort of about two hours south of Washington, D.C.
A lot of software companies, I think, in Virginia. Is that correct? I used to work in Virginia.
There are a few. There are a lot in Northern Virginia, and there are some in Central Virginia where we are. There's some in Charlottesville, a little close to here, and there's obviously plenty in Research Triangle, a little bit south of here in North Carolina. So.
Okay, so let's move on to the next product. And I know you have more than just these two, but we're going to stick to just these two tonight. Restock Pro. Tell me exactly what does it do for an Amazon seller? Is it only FBA? Give me a little bit of a background of exactly what it does, please.
Right. So Restock Pro is We call it an FBA-centric tool. I wouldn't say it's all FBA, but it is very specialized towards FBA because, what we saw was that FBA was really where the growth was happening on Amazon a few years ago, and a lot of sellers were kind of like starting an engine and it was taking off, and they almost didn't know where the brake was, or and they didn't know whether they were going in the right direction. And so what Restock Pro is designed to do, and incidentally, the original name for it was going to be FBA Pro, but a friendly person from Amazon let us know that they didn't want us to use that name, and we took the hint and we changed the name. So it's called Restock Pro, but it always was intended to be an FBA centric tool. So I like to say that it does a lot of complicated things, and people sometimes say, I didn't know it did that. But I like to simplify it into two basic things that Restock Pro does. Number one, it provides strategic reporting, and I'll explain what that means. And number two, it provides automation. So strategic reporting, there are two big components of the strategic reporting. One is the obvious, it does forecasting. So it tells you, how much you should order, when you should order. It keeps track of your inventory and makes sure it's not too low. If it's too low, you're going to miss sales. You're leaving dollars on the table. If it's too high, then you're tying up inventory dollars that could be better spent somewhere else. And also it puts you at risk. If something changes in the Amazon marketplace, if the price drops, if the popularity drops, you don't want to be sitting on inventory, any more inventory than you possibly need to. So we try to have the sort of Goldilocks level of inventory. So that's the forecasting, but really equally important to that is we also have a lot of reporting that's built into the tool and that we're constantly tweaking and developing right now that is designed for profit optimization. So any Amazon seller, it doesn't matter whether you have 100 SKUs or you have 10,000 SKUs or more that you're selling on FBA, it's a lot to keep track of. And not all of your SKUs are going to be performing the same way. Some of them are going to be your golden SKUs that you're doing well on. They're moving. There's a high profit margin. There's good turn ratios. There are other SKUs where they're just sitting, and you've got dollars tied up in inventory. They're not profitable. Whatever. There's all kinds of reasons. And one of the goals of the tool is to surface this information for you in a very strategic way, so that you can, frankly, get rid of your poor performing SKUs and learn what a good performing SKU looks like, so that you can focus on those and go out and find more of them. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the profit optimization and the reporting does for Restock Pro. And then the second big area is I would call automation, and automation is all of the things which go into the equation of making your Restock Pro, your FBA business tick. Things like keeping track of shipments, keeping track of receiving in Amazon, setting up purchase orders, handling kitting and taking all care of the complex things of kitting things, and then you receive things and you decide maybe I want to kit them differently than I first thought. Those are all for many sellers, spreadsheet, huge spreadsheet challenges. Our spreadsheets run amok, and what we try to do is really provide data clarity, and also for things like purchase orders, we just make that easy. We structure the purchase order, we create the purchase order, we can send it to the supplier for you, or we can provide a data dump that you can automatically put it into your ERP system if you're using a separate ERP system. And then similarly for creating inbound shipments, we automate that process for creating inbound shipments into Amazon, and for creating the labels and stickers and all that sort of thing. So, so in a nutshell, there's obviously a lot of fine-tuned details of it, but that's the core of what it does.
Right. Now, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jay.
No, that's a good. It basically is designed to help you manage your FBA business. So it is FBA centric, but you asked me about non-FBA things, and I would say we do have a lot of sellers that are doing multi-channel fulfillment. And we certainly forecast that, and we also have sellers that need to manage their local inventory. And we are in the process right now of adding some additional forecast tools that will look at your sales off of Amazon, that may be on eBay, it may be on your own web store, it may be on Sears, whatever, and capture those as well. So when you're working with your supplier, you may need to create a unified order that could support multiple channels.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question which I know others are going to ask. You know, especially if you're not such a large seller, you can go on Amazon and they can forecast for you your inventory, how long it's going to last, how many more days you have. How is this different than Amazon's built into?
Right, that's a really good question. So Amazon does have some nice tools. I would say that there are a number of ways, there are a number of things, especially for once you reach a certain level of, you know, success on Amazon, certain volume, where a tool that's run by a company like Ecom Engine, a third-party tool, is going to give you an immense amount of more power than you're going to get from an Amazon-centric tool. So one of the core reasons is that a tool like ours is going to be able to track all of your profitability and report on your profitability. You can't make supply chain decisions unless you know what your profitability looks like. Now, if you wanted to share your profitability numbers with Amazon, maybe down in the future, that might be something they could report on, but that's probably not likely that's going to happen. Also, there are a lot of things that are going on in your supply chain that are not visible to Amazon. Things like when you place a purchase order and something's on order, that's something that's not ever going to be available on Amazon, but Restock Pro keeps track of all that. It knows exactly where everything is. Is it on order? Has it been shipped to your warehouse? We also support a direct ship model where you can ship directly from your supplier to Amazon. It keeps track of where everything is and really reduces complexity. If you're a small seller, it might make sense just to use Amazon, and is a good way to learn and get started. But as you grow your business, I think the amount of data and the amount of reporting that a tool like Restock Pro is going to be able to give you is going to pay for itself just immensely many times over in being able to run your business strategically.
Right, and it's two separate, nothing to do with FeedbackFive, just happens to be the same company, right? The pricing and all of that.
What's that?
It's two separate softwares. One has nothing to do.
It's the same company, but we've just branded the software separately. That is correct. It is true that in the not too distant future, we'll be able to have a single login that you can access multiple tools, but they're at this point they're separate tools. There's a separate account on each tool. So it's a good question.
Okay, Jay, and you gave great answers. And once again, FeedbackFive is really like a legendary tool for many Amazon sellers. For some of the older, I'm already considered older. Some of the older Amazon sellers. So you do a great job, and I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely be in touch. Okay, Jay?
Thanks very much, Ed. Great talking with you today.
Thank you. Right.
Okay, bye-bye.